Welcome back to the stream. And we have a talk about the issue of using mobile phones. And our speaker, Stefan, since 2013, has been using a phone without Google accounts. I have been doing this for a while. What are the advantages? What are the challenges? There will be a short introduction, some background information, and this talk has been pre-recorded for technical reasons, but you can always ask questions through the usual channels, Mastodon, Twitter, using the hashtags PW20 or PW20online. And on the streaming page, streaming.privacyweek.at, there is a form for asking questions. And to those listening to the interpretation, I would encourage you to ask in English if you want. The speakers would understand it and will be able to answer in English. We won't translate the break room conversation afterwards, but you won't need us for that, I'm sure. Thank you to all the helpers that have been working for a long, long time, not just for these 7 days, and have invested a lot of time. The sponsors, Next Layers, have been donated streaming capacity, and the Federal Labor Chamber, or the Vienna Labor Chamber, has donated to us, sponsored us. Thank you for that. And also linked from the website, you have the option of donating. I think the URL is /spenden, which is German for donate. You can also order t-shirts. So a nice way of showing your connection, your support for this event. All right, Stefan, you did want to give a short introduction. Yes. About the talk itself. Well, this is going to be in the video. I just wanted to talk about the fact that my slides are online. I didn't get the URL. And the online version has an extra slide in it that deals with other services. And the background is background on the web. Maybe the URL was nextcloud.eu/pw2020, but we're not sure. We interpreters, that is. Okay, thank you, and let's start the video. Hello, and welcome to my contribution for the Privacy Week, which is nearing its end. And it's titled No Account, No Features, and is supposed to give you an overview about how to use mobile telephony without forced logins, so without being coerced to enter into a contract relation with the large corporations. There are various motivations for that, one of which, of course, are privacy issues, which have been probably discussed at large during this whole week. Another motivation could be that the corporations that control the software should not be given any extra power which they would use. For example, to remove apps from their store which they don't like, or whose makers, in their opinion, are not paying enough money, or to just drag more people into their ecosystem and coerce them that way, as Google did it with Q890. In these slides, there are many links in the slides. You can click on them if you have them online, and you'll then see the sources of all these beautiful pictures, and you'll get some more information on them. Now, to my own smartphone history or biography, just to let you know where I have my knowledge from, I have used Android without Google for a long time. I started with an HTC Wildfire S device, which was a custom ROM from HTC, and did include a Google account, and at some point I didn't receive any more updates, which I found regrettable, because phones stop working well when they don't, and from the point of view of the hardware, I didn't think I needed any upgrade, but it wasn't usable anymore. I then migrated to a used Samsung Galaxy S second device and made sure that I only got phones that I could flash with custom ROMs, and I will talk about that more later on. But first, let's talk about the current situation in the smartphone market. We have two options there, basically, which is either Apple iOS or Google Android, or Huawei Android. Just to compare these, Apple iOS is completely closed. Google Android, well, Android itself is open source. Large parts of the system are, but there is a lot of important functionality that is coupled to the Google services and thus controlled by Google. Now the question is, what are the alternatives? You can use these mobile phones without an account as they are sold, which is a bit easier with an Apple iOS phone, but then you can only use the software that comes pre-installed with the phone. There seem to be ways to tell the mobile using a menu that you are a software developer, and then to copy software from the computer onto the phone. With Google Android, even to just make a phone call, it's quite an effort to avoid logging in, because I know from experience, when you switch the mobile on for the first time, you will be asked to log into Google. You can refuse to do that, but then you have a large number of apps that insist on using the Google services and want to access them, but can't. And the phone will just go wild for a while. So you need to deactivate a large number of apps. Often you cannot uninstall the apps. The pre-installed apps cannot be uninstalled. And then look for a replacement for those. And some of these contain important functions such as making phone calls or using the camera. And of course, you want to get software from somewhere, so you need to find an alternative app store as well. More on that later, but we'll just talk about another option now and about the problems. First, the problems. Problems that are created by using these replacement ROMs. That come from the manufacturer. That means that your choice of apps is controlled by the manufacturer of the phone. And that comes with an enforced consent to the company's terms and conditions. And what also comes with that is that the default settings are almost always not privacy friendly. You will tell the manufacturer about everything you do with the phone. And if you want to prevent that, you have to dive deeply into the settings, dig deep there. And that's quite an effort. And you can never be sure whether that effort actually gives you a lasting result or whether you need to readjust settings after each update. So it's a position where you can be blackmailed as a person, and the software developers that we have seen in a previous slide can be blackmailed because they have to offer the software through the App Store of the US manufacturer to have any chance of entering the market, which is an easy way for the corporations to exclude competition. So the question now is, what are the alternatives? The easiest one, of course, is to buy or to organize yourself an old mobile phone which has the advantage of being cheap and fairly reliable, but if it is an old style phone, that is, but the disadvantage is that you have very few functions, and the old mobile phone standards which are the only these phones support are not current and may lead to signal reception problems and so on. Other options are custom ROMs, and then there are completely different operating systems that are neither Android nor iOS, and I'll come to those later as well. Now, to custom ROMs. Now, let me just list what custom ROMs are. These include all these other Android versions. And there are a few things to keep in mind there. First, there is an effort involved in making these ROMs available. And you can't do this with every smartphone. And if you want to flash these custom ROMs onto your phone, it will probably incur a loss of warranty. It's often technically difficult to install these ROMs, and quite often you have software fragments remaining as blobs on your phone. So they stick around and they age, they get older, and just hang around and to understand, for your understanding, blobs are parts of the software that only exist as binary data where you cannot, which are not controlled by the actual system developers.
Yeah. What custom ROMs are there? There's quite a selection. The ones shown here are only a selection of the selection. The most well-known might be Lineage. It used to have a different name. This is 100% free software, and it used to be called Cyanogen Mod. But it also only works on some devices, on a limited range of devices. But there's quite a good selection. Well, about installation. Well, you have to say the choice of hardware is rather limited. And not every custom ROM covers a lot of hardware. So you have to look up which hardware works. And also few manufacturers are positioned positively about these custom ROMs. I only know 2, Fairphone, for example. There might be more. And well, if you've installed a custom ROM, how do you install new software? One possibility which is declining, unfortunately, is downloading from the manufacturer's website, meaning the manufacturer of the software. And well, just download it from the internet, install there. But that circumvents the Android native security mechanisms. Another alternative are so-called second-hand stores. At least that's what I call them, that provide access to apps that are on the Google Play Store, but they kind of spoof an account. And they, for example, there's a store called Yelp, or app sharing is also a possibility. There's software for that. And that allows you to share applications as APK files via Bluetooth and then install it on your phone. But you require, or you need someone who already has the app. And independent stores, that is my opinion, is the best possibility. F-Droid is the one best known to me. But this store is pretty good. It's limited to open source and free software. And it also has an app. And if you look at the website here, it's recommended to get the software, to get software from the store. So it allows you to directly download APKs, but it's recommended to use the F-Droid app to install software. And it also offers the possibility to include other stores compatible with F-Droid. And this is used in regions where the internet is not so good. Sometimes you have Wi-Fi hotspots that are that provide F-Droid stores. But there are also limitations. One of them, you have to, well, the installation problems. Often you have an outdated kernel. And it's impossible to get a new one for hardware reasons, because then, for example, the mobile radio doesn't work. And also, you're not influencing the market because you're installing your own software, but well, your money still goes to Google. And also, well, the thing about trust. I always say maybe I can't trust Lineage, but I actively mistrust Google. But Google needs to make an effort, and they have a lot to lose. And they have to provide a secure, stable system to its customers. And other manufacturers could just provide prototypes and see what happens. So you have to be careful there. And still, you are, in some aspects, still under the control of Google or of the hardware provider manufacturer, because they still provide the blobs. And Google still decides about how Android is further developed, which has side effects. For example, the thing about push notifications that were introduced, and suddenly a lot of apps couldn't provide push notifications without using Google services. So there are effects, even though you took the step away from using the Google Android system. Well, now the question arises, what other systems do we have? Those are the few alternatives that I know. And they have different goals, which I divided them by. There are systems which want to provide an alternative to Android because they say Android is short-lived, and we want to create a system that you can use when Android is no longer supported. And the other goal is independence, because they want to be independent on hardware, and they do not want money to be funneled to large manufacturers and monopolists. And somewhere in between, we have UB ports. They wanted to provide their own hardware, and I think they still do, but they're still using a lot of Android hardware. Well, Selfish OS is one of the independence-driven systems I know. It's based on free software, but the UI, which is very important for mobile devices, is closed source. And there are also distributions, Linux distributions, that provide a mobile version, or where people have built a mobile version themselves. Pure OS is one of them. It's made by Purism, which also provides smartphones. And if you want to buy such a smartphone, you should inform yourself extensively about it, because some people are saying very bad things about the manufacturer, which I don't want to relay here. And then there's those two projects, Mobian and Pine64, both were developed for the Pine phone, or first introduced for the Pine phone. But you have to say Pine phone is a prototype, and the software reflects this. So it's still in development, and it's got its little issues. So you should make a conscious decision. But it's something. And maybe in a year, maybe at PrivacyWeek 2021, we'll have a talk about Pine phones, or all of us will be using Pine phones. I don't know. But to have a deeper understanding about what is Pine phone, it's a project where the manufacturer wants to provide hardware and wants to support the software development, but not develop the software themselves, but help others do so. And if you scroll through the whole thing, you see that the goal is to provide free software, to make free software able to run on this hardware. Well, that's it about the recording. That's the recording. I don't know how we'll continue, but probably we'll have a Q&A after. Thank you for watching.
Okay, welcome back. The recorded part is now over, and we have a few questions or remarks that were received during the video, and I hope that there won't be repetitions. My problem is that I can't hear the audio for that video, so maybe some of the questions you have already answered, but I've seen that maybe you covered these topics in principle. So the one remark or question was regarding the Yelp store that you mentioned. The question was, and according to my own experience too, the Yelp store has almost stopped working. It keeps getting blocked recently. Do you have a solution for that? Because of course, in principle, you do want to try alternative app stores, but not all apps that you may need are found there. Well, this, I don't know, fake account that Yelp uses, or however they do this technically. Yeah. If that won't work, then you cannot use the Google Play Store this way. If you have an account and you don't have to use it, you could supply it to Yelp Store, and maybe Google will see that it keeps not working and react, but that option is there. I haven't tried this myself. And maybe that will be blocked every now and then, yes. Yeah, as I said, I haven't tried it with my own account yet, but for professional reasons, I do have a Google account and I use that for a phone. But I haven't used that for a phone, but there's no phone number connected to that account yet. Then there is another remark. I've seen that you've covered this in part. Maybe this will repeat something. Your opinion about the Pine phone, is that a reasonable alternative in the long term? Or will it get old and stop working? It will probably remain a niche product because the developers are all using the two large platforms, the app developers. But what I do believe is that these people have cooked their own arm, and they are on a good path, and I'm pretty optimistic then in 2 or 3 months or half a year, it will be possible to use this with standard apps. And I believe that other current alternative projects will face the same problem. So there were other projects that I've used in the past, but I've always had, it almost felt that resources were a problem. It's always expensive to produce these things in small quantities, and it seemed like development was very difficult with a small user base. That is quite true. And I thought, yes, you have to consider whether you want to kind of let that kind of loose on you and go to that trouble, especially if it doesn't work perfectly, and I wonder if it ever would. I have one of those at home myself, and yeah, that problem even exists with standard Android with smaller manufacturers. I have a Fairphone 2 lying around, and there as well, it took a while until they had the most basic bugs dealt with. And with the larger manufacturers, they would have to ensure that before they release something, they get the worst bugs removed. So even there, with that relatively small project, the Fairphone, we've had this, yes, that is the crutch. And well, I don't understand really if I look at hardware today that supports a standard protocol, then I should be able to use the software that exists already and not go to the trouble myself. But it seems like in the mobile phone area, in the mobile phone market, that is not possible.
Well, I talked to some people that also did some development there. And I'm also using one for controlling the stream right now. And well, the problems, it isn't as standardized, so I can't just exchange stuff. And also the availability range and length of availability is a thing. So well, sometimes you have the problem that the hardware is no longer available when the software is finally perfect. So there are problems like this. And we have another question that just popped in. I don't get the abbreviation they used. Why doesn't the community do PR? And I don't know what they mean by PR. Well, the interpreter would say press relations, but I don't know. Maybe if the person who wrote this is maybe if they're listening, they can help us out. But well, we can try and talk about that in the break room. There are other comments or remarks that about app stores. Well, Google doesn't seem to like those spoofed accounts that app stores use. Well, why don't they provide us with a possibility to download apps anonymously? Well. Now, I'm not seeing any pressing questions here right now, but generally, the question is always, if it's worth it. That's something you have to decide for yourself. Also, which mixes work? For example, if you completely leave Android, you always have the problem that you do need certain apps in the end, and that can make it difficult. For example, Signal is often used with friends and others because it's relatively anonymous and has nice features and is one of the best messengers there is. But yeah, it's tied to your phone. And yeah, that's always a question of range and what you need. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier with the software problems. Well, yeah. Progressive Web App is the PR abbreviation. So it's going in the direction of browsers. Yeah, still the problem. Well, it's done partly, but the problem is still about hardware support. Getting the apps running is the smaller problem. It gets more difficult when software isn't being developed. And the kernel problem. If I'm running a lineage system, that doesn't mean that I can update it and that the updates will work. Yeah, unfortunately, this doesn't only go for mobile phone, but also other systems. For example, CPUs, I've seen, well, problems with kernel updates because manufacturers obviously haven't understood that I may be interested in getting into the kernel and not having to use special software for that. Because that also wastes resources on the manufacturer side. Well, then I'd suggest we'll have a look at the break room and see if people want to discuss or want questions answered. Yeah, sounds good. You have the link? Yo.